Dude, your hair's looking fucking luscious.
Yeah.
Let's do this. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another fantastic fellow finding ways to freeze the FM waves with frozen ice in his veins, all while factitiously feeling laughter from his friends who find healing in fables. Uncle Gary wanted to be a radio DJ when he grew up. Then he grew up, and he didn't. Episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
And I am Drew Head.
I'm lucky I made it through that intro, dude. That last hit got me good.
Yeah, I saw in the salts you were struggling to find your way back.
Yeah. I was like, dark room, just looking for a light switch. Just fucking God damn it. Okay, I'm back, though. I'm here with it. What are you guys been up to? You guys doing okay?
Yeah, I'm good. I've been working, going to school. I'm on spring break now.
Oh, yeah. You're working now, too.
Yeah, I got
dude.
a second job.
Yeah, you're doing...
on top of like the 5 others.
Yeah, selling drugs, right?
Yeah,
Is that what
sure.
it was? No.
How's
Prostitute.
You what?
He's a prostitute.
Yeah, he's selling his body.
Good money in that.
Yeah, man. So that's where we're at.
What about you? What'd you do this week?
Dude, first week this year that I've knocked out 2 books in 1 week. So pretty pumped about that. So on pace for 60 books this year. But the one that I'm really pumped about is The Alchemist by, I don't know how you say his last name, Paulo Coelho. He's a Spanish fella, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this is a really great book, though. Paulo Coelho, really great book. If you haven't read it, it's a short read, it's a quick read, and it's also a really good read. My favorite part of it, there's a scene where this kid's like wandering through the desert looking for treasure, right?
Right.
At the Great Pyramids of Giza in Egypt. And he's on his journey through the desert, and they have to stop. This caravan he's with, they stop. And they have to stop because there's like a war going on between tribes. You know what I mean? So in my head the whole time, I'm like, dude, this is like, he's like, you get a feeling that he's going to find his blood diamond. You know what I mean?
Which, working in the jewelry world, I feel like they should bring back conflict diamonds.
Oh.
Like, I would pay more for a conflict diamond than a regular diamond.
What the fuck is a conflict diamond?
Basically, diamonds that, like, people have died for or they had to smuggle through. Like, so, like, they have, like, they got, like, sheep that they'll cut the sheep and, like, put packages of diamonds in the sheep and sew them up.
Yeah, if you get proposed to with a diamond that has blood on it,
they're not
it's more
bloody
special.
anymore. They get cleaned, but they're just called blood diamonds or conflict diamonds. But I think that they could like a slogan for
metaphorical blood,
right? But diamonds with a story, diamonds with a past.
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, and like, I mean, it's no different than my iPhone. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, that's
it's pretty close to the same, dude.
I'll pay more. You know, just show me how many bodies this product's got on it,
dude. Could I just get the last names of people that died on the back of my iPhone? You know what I mean? Like Zing Pow or whatever it might be. I don't know. Shout out hashtag to the safety nets. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's wild. Really good book though. Get into it. It's a quick read. I literally read it in one sitting. So
it's one of those books that they recommend to like the self-betterment of like.
There's a lot of like coachings, if you will. So it was pretty cool. It was a good read, fun read. Tom, can you do me a favor?
Joining us this week in the Days Grimm studio is Paul
Bragin. God, I should have done the intro.
He said that Bragin. You mentioned Bragin. It threw me off. Bragin, how are you?
Paul, I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Paul Bragin. I'm good, sir. You're doing okay.
I'm doing great, I think.
Do you own an iPhone?
I do not. So
okay, good.
I did not have a smartphone until the pandemic hit.
Oh man!
Like, I was a holdout. I had my flip phone that is still like in a glove compartment of a car.
I thought he was gonna say a Faraday bag.
Yeah, no, and so well, just a chip bag that just wrapped up. Yeah, no, but like I didn't have a smartphone until the pandemic hit. I had just got a job doing sales at a radio station in Owensboro, Kentucky, and the thing is, I should explain at the beginning of 2019. my dad said, hey, at the beginning of 2020, 5G is going to happen, and that means your flip phone is not going to work anymore.
Oh.
And I had no idea what any of those words meant that he said. And so, like, Christmas of 2019, one of my presents was, like, my dad's old phone that they had put in a box and wrapped.
Yeah.
And so then in, like, January of 2020, I finally activated, like, my first smartphone that was my dad's old one that I used for this job in Owensboro because I had to do some stuff on, like, that phone for work. And then, like, I didn't last long in that job. And then, like, the pandemic hit. So I can't prove that me finally switching over to a smartphone started the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's like it's a possibility.
Causation versus correlation, you know what I'm saying? No, but so you've pretty well up until this point led your life with a clean conscience, knowing that no one that died making an iPhone was your fault, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
So that's nice. Now, maybe not so much.
You're tainted.
Yeah, you are tainted. Tainted blood. Question,
Yes.
though. Another question. So why'd you hold out so long? You're not... So how... Can I ask how old you are?
I'm going to lie and say 25 and hope you don't find out I'm closer to 29. Oh, oops. Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
So you're 29,
And
right?
so
why'd you hold out so long? Like,
Well,
you're a younger guy.
Were you really good at pocket texting?
yeah.
T9.
Well, that and like I'm just a holdout for like I don't want to embrace new technology anyway, just kind of like that. But like I remember one time we had Christmas at my parents' house here in Evansville, and we had family up from Nashville, and Nashville's 3 hours away.
Yeah.
But like just because of life and stuff, like we might get to see them like once a year. Like they don't always get a chance to make it to Thanksgiving and Christmas for whatever reason. And so like one year at Christmas, like they were there. And I made a comment to my aunt that I didn't have a smartphone. And she said, why not? And I pointed to my uncle, her husband, and my cousin, her daughter, who were both kind of tapping away on their smartphones.
Yeah. Tip, 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 tap,
And it's
tap,
like,
tap,
okay,
tap.
like we see each other once a year and they're tapping away on their smartphones.
I respect that. Like, that's so sick. If I could just throw away my iPhone and go to a flip phone and not lose contact with all of my friends, I would do it. But none of my friends use their phone numbers. They just use fucking Snapchat, which drives me insane.
I fucking hate that. Okay. So you're not privy to like the smartphone world,
No.
but I will introduce you to, I'm sure you've heard about Snapchat.
Yeah.
Yes? Okay. All right. So you can just message on there.
Okay.
There's another application called WhatsApp.
Okay. Yeah.
Another application
Big military use.
strictly for messaging, off the grid messaging. What's another good one? DMs, like all the Instagram DMs.
Instagram, Facebook Messenger.
Like I've got Facebook Messenger that
Discord.
I use just like,
Yeah.
I'm not near a computer.
But some of these youngsters, I say youngsters and vivaciously point my finger at Drew because he's like 12, but no, he just turned 21 not too long ago. But some of these youngsters, man, they will fucking, they are adamant about like, I'm going to text you. Okay, I'm waiting for your text. They have my number. And then they message me through fucking Snapchat. I'm like, dude, fucking stop. Fucking stop, dude.
I hate it.
I hate it
And
so much.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Snapchat was originally designed like you send somebody a picture and it deletes in 10 seconds.
You can never open it again. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
That's what
now
it was.
you can like replay
Replay
it
it.
and you can adjust the time that you
pretty
that
ideal
you can
for
watch
like
it
a
for.
nude sending situation.
Yeah, that's what it was heavily used for originally. Now
nudes.
it's like a form of communication more.
Sadly. So fucking
Snapchat
So, Paul, what
sucks.
all do you do?
Yeah, what?
Well, you mentioned the radio, but outside of radio, what else is there?
So I'm lucky enough to be doing a lot with the community theater in Evansville. We do 2 Shakespeare shows every year. We just did our winter show back in January. It was a show called Pericles that like nobody's heard of before. And
Is that like Hercules' autistic cousin?
Yeah.
Or
nice.
like a paraplegic Hercules?
Yeah,
That's
my
exactly
gosh, somebody
what I
needs
thought.
somebody needs to write that script.
Comes strolling out
Like
in a wheelchair.
yeah, Pericles' 12 labors are just like getting up the stairs by himself,
Right.
like opening a jar of pickles. I don't know.
Oh, he has a fucking donkey leading him with his fucking wheelchair, and it's like a
Yeah.
chariot type situation. That'd be fucking sick.
But like the director of the show, like every time they do a show, the director will get up before the show starts and say to the audience, "Hey, thanks for coming." And like we put a lot of work into this play, and here's what you should know about it. And the two things the director said before this play were, like, this is the first Shakespeare show where women were on stage. Because, like, everything you hear about in school is, like, when Shakespeare was writing plays, it was only men on stage. So Juliet was a guy on stage, and all that stuff. And so apparently this was the first show that had actual women on stage. And the other thing she said was, like, this play was really popular 500 years ago when Shakespeare, like, wrote it and performed it. And then everybody forgot about it. Like, my parents came to see the play. And so before the play, since they'd never heard of it, like, my dad looked it up online, and he found some website where, like, the BBC asked 1,000 English people, okay, like, we're going to list all the Shakespeare plays, put a check mark next to the ones you've seen or read in school or at least heard of, you know, kind of thing. And so at the top, it's Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet and Midsummer Night's Dream. And, like, I think he said in last place with 1% was Pericles.
Nice. So at least, a small select few know.
So they do a different Shakespeare play?
Yeah. So we just did Pericles in January. And at that show, they announced this summer, they always do a summer show at Willard Park Library, just out on the lawn. That's always in August. They announced that show is going to be Midsummer Night's Dream. And then next January, they're going to be doing Romeo and Juliet.
That's a lot of memorizing. You think you're good at memorizing?
Well, no. So because I work such long days, like, I'm not going to get into my second job because they don't pay me enough, and I don't want to give them any kind of, like, free publicity. Like, if they pay, I'm gonna say this. I'll say this. So, for the last couple of years, because I'm a big radio guy, I make a donation to the USI radio station. And when you make donations to nonprofit radio stations like college stations or religious stations, anything like that, you can get, like, free commercials on the air because you donated. And they're like, that's just the thing they do, which is awesome.
Take note.
And so I went to my employer. This is, like, I was new at this employer, and I left a voicemail for somebody in, like, and not even for any specific person. I just, like, got the voicemail for the advertising department. I was like, hey, my name's Paul. I just started here, and I make donations to a college radio station, so we can get free advertising. So just, like, let me know what you want me to do with this kind of thing. And, like, and nobody ever got back to me. and one of the things is, like, nobody at my job, like, I feel like gets paid enough. Like, we're all doing a whole bunch of, like, grunt work. Yeah. And we're not adequately compensated for it. Like, if I were adequately compensated, I would be saying their name, like, every 30 seconds on this podcast, but I'm not.
Really just feels like you're kind of, like, just grinding.
Yeah. Oh, so back to my original point. So I've got my radio show at 99.9 FM and 1540 AM WBNL in Boonville, Indiana.
Silky smooth.
Yeah. And then I go work my second job that shall remain unnamed. And so, like, if I'm working 2 jobs in a day and then I go to play practice, like, my characters usually only have, like, a few lines, which is amazing because that's all I can handle memorizing at this point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Easy. Yeah. Yeah, dude, you're peaked. You're peaking right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're maxed out. You need to... Phew.
Yeah.
Did we talk about your employer before the show started? The one that's not adequately compensated?
No, we did not. This is all fresh content.
Remind me.
This is fresh OC. Is that what the kids are calling it?
I think fresh to death.
Fresh to death.
Straight gas.
Yeah. That sounds like somebody farted.
No, I don't know. Straight gas is like a thing now. Okay. And then like a flame emoji next to it. Remind me. We got to talk about that after the show because now I need to know.
Okay.
But yeah, man. So you do a lot, is what it sounds like, and you're a busy man.
Yeah.
So, but you have had time to check out some of the Days Grimm podcast shows before, right?
Yeah.
Did you watch or did you listen out of curiosity?
I watched on the YouTubes.
On the YouTube.
Yeah,
nice.
I watched. We're all friends with Chris Izzy.
I love him so much.
He's a great guy. Yeah, he's given me some advice in the comedy world that's been pretty helpful.
How long have you been doing comedy?
I should have written down the day I started because I'm going to say it's been at least 5 years, but Chris Izzy mentioned this. Yeah, the Evansville comedy scene is growing. I'm going to say by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, especially this last year.
Yeah, even a couple years because for the last couple years, the Jennings Street Public House over in Newburgh has been having their monthly open mic show. And then just recently, there's been a guy named Alan Walker who has this weekly open mic, which is amazing. Just the fact that we can say once a week there's an open mic.
For comics only.
For comics. And right now it is at...
Damsels,
thank you. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See,
it's close.
They were doing it at Fidel's, and they just moved it to Damsels.
Oh, dude,
Yeah.
I fuck with Fidel's so much. I love that joint.
Yeah.
God, dude. Have you ever been?
I have. I used to go, I was there every week for a while with the comedy. And there was one time they had an event there. I forget what the deal was, but it was like you pay $40 to get in, and then they give you a cigar and a bottle of, I think it was rye whiskey for the row. You might have had your choice between rye or bourbon. I was like, I was like, well, I've got some bourbon at home already. My rye supply is a little low right now, so I'll go with the rye. I think that's probably what I ended, because I'm looking
Rationalized it.
I'm looking at like my alcohol collection at home, and like again, like we were kind of talking about this before we started the podcast. Like, I'll happily take whatever anybody offers me.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I'm the same way. Like, if I'm at a place and they're like, "Hey, man, we're doing a vodka tasting," I'm like, "Fuck it, I can be Russian for a day." You know what I mean? Like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
so it's fine. But I say that because you watched the episode, so you've gotten to see some of the episodes. So you know about this little treat that we do. We do it every week. I'm not real pumped about it. Drew's getting giddy. Drew, let's spin it up. This week's Death of the Week.
The Death of the Week.
This week's Death of the Week, brought to you by my internal sadness and some fine cognac this week. Remy Martin. This week's Death of the Week, woman dies after being impaled by metal straw. This is 2019, July 2019, and this was written by John Sharman. Source is independent.co.uk. Here we go. Give me a little zoom action here on that column, please. A woman was killed when she fell onto a metal drinking straw that pierced her eye socket and entered her brain. An inquest heard. Age 60, was carrying a mason jar style drinking glass with a screw top lid when she collapsed in her home in Poole, Dorset. Don't know where that is. In November last year. So this article is already older when they wrote it. But anyway, so going on. The 10-inch metal straw, held in place by the lid, entered her left eye and caused a fatal brain injury. The former jockey had had mobility problems since a riding accident when she was 21 and was prone to collapsing due to pain caused by spinal injuries. Miss wife, Mandy, that's a fucking hell of a last name, Mandy, told the inquest in a statement, quote, "I did not hear her fall," end quote. I went to the kitchen door and could see lying on her front at the doorway between the den and the kitchen. Quote, she was making unusual gurgling sounds. Her glass cup was lying on the floor still intact and the straw still in the jar. I noticed the straw was sticking into her head. I called 999. Is that England? I think that's England. 999. And requested an ambulance. She added, quote, "While I was on the phone, appeared to have stopped breathing. The lady on the phone asked me to turn her over. I slid the glass off the straw and turned her over. I could see the straw had gone through her left eye," end quote. Doctors at Southampton General Hospital were unable to help Miss, and her life support was switched off the following day. Medical workers have, quote, "never seen an injury like that," end quote, said Detective Inspector Wayne Seymour of Dorset Police. Kind of goes into some post-mortem details after that, but I just wanted to read this article to give a shout out to Starbucks handing out all those reusable metal straws. And here's a picture of Miss here. Yeah, so, gentlemen, what the fuck?
No mouth the straw. No CPR.
Just start
blowing into her eye
Yeah,
socket.
blowing into her fucking brain cavity.
Are we sure this wasn't like a lesbian dominant situation? Like, there's a lot of physical abuse
take.
in the lesbian.
Hot take.
I'm thinking it's a homicide.
Hot take. Lovers quarrel, if you will.
I'm just glad they're showing us the before picture on the website.
What if it was the post-mortem?
She's just on her side with a straw out.
I mean, what if? I mean, I'm guessing eventually there's going to be, because they said they've never seen an injury like this before.
There's got to be documentation.
I'm guessing somewhere, like someday, there is going to be a medical textbook with the before and after right next to each other.
Well, and what's that story you hear about that the explosive miner with the rod?
Explosive miner with
You
the
learn
rod.
about it in school. But
know.
it was like they've set a charge down and you have a rod and you hit the charge and it goes off. But like this guy hit it and the rod shot back through his face and took out part of his brain.
And then are we talking about a guy that lived?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
lived it through it.
So there's a name coming to mind. This might be the same. I feel like the name Phineas Gage.
Yes,
he was like
that's who it is.
in like the 1800s, and yeah, he had like, and like they couldn't remove it, so he just had stuff sticking out of his head for the rest of his life, and it was like some things were fine with him, but then like he couldn't remember the color blue.
Right.
I think
for the rest of his life.
It was a railroad spike that went through his brain, and it literally like changed his whole
I
personality.
do know this.
Like
I know
he was
this.
fine. He's just that a part of his brain got fucked up, and he was just a different person. Basically.
That's on Ripley's Believe It or Not. That's the only reason I know that. They did a section or a segment on Como se dice? What was his name?
Phineas Gage.
Phineas Gage. They did an article. I'm 99% sure Ripley's Believe It or Not did a yeah.
Which reminds me a lot of that war vet guy I sent you guys.
Yeah. I bought a book. I bought his book.
Really?
Yeah, I bought
About
his
him?
book. Yeah, it's the name of it is so fucking stupid. Like it's like Happy War or something.
Yeah. So
I swear to God. There's this guy. Oh, sorry, Drew, you go ahead.
Phineas P Gage, 1823 to 1860, was an American railroad construction foreman, remembers for his improbable survival of an accident in which a large iron rod was driven completely through his head, destroying much of his brain's left frontal lobe. And for that, injuries reported effects on his personality and behavior over the remaining 12 years of his life. Effects sufficiently profound that friends saw him, at least for a time at least, as no longer Gage.
Well, no shit.
But he was like one of the before that. I believe they didn't think that you could survive brain injuries,
This
and he was
picture
like one of the
goes so
first
hard,
people.
though.
Dude, look at no. That's not the injury
Yeah,
It went through his eye. He's holding the fucking
it went through his
Iron rod.
head, bro.
yeah. Like fully went through and like his left frontal lobe, I guess.
Pull up. Remember
Bro.
that? Was that in our group message of that war survivor guy from Wikipedia? That
don't
apparently
know.
Brian just bought a book on. Check out this guy that we're about to pull up.
You can just go to my Amazon, or yeah, either way, text Amazon. It's in my Amazon cart. I'll give you the gist, or well, he'll pull it up. But basically, there was this English fella. Go to my orders, and then pull up the book that's in there. Not that one. Not one. No. Down. Next book. Happy Odyssey is what it's called. Happy Odyssey.
Wow.
This is about Sir Adrian Carton de Wiart. Wart. I don't know how you say that last name. He's an English fella, though. And essentially, this guy, born in like the early 1900s, late 1800s, grew up and then served in World War I alongside Winston Churchill and like suffered massive calamity. Like, you could pull up the Wikipedia because I don't want to like misquote, but basically he was shot 3 or 4 times, stabbed 5 or 6 times.
He got blown up, and like some of his fingers were hanging off, and they weren't gonna like amputate them, so he just cut them off himself and was like, "Yo, send me back in." He escaped from a war camp after that, and then like on a previous mission, like their plane went down and like landed in a river, and so he's only got like basically one hand, and you know he's like holding somebody else and swims to shore while like holding the other guy. And then what's it say that he like
here's the brief description. Sir Adrian Paul Justin Carton de Wart, 5 May 1880 to June 5 1963, so he lived a long life, was a British Army officer. He was awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest military decoration awarded for valor, quote, in the face of the enemy, end quote, in various Commonwealth countries. He served in the Boer War, the First World War, the Second World War. He was shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, and ear, was blinded in his left eye, survived 2 plane crashes, tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp, and tore off his own fingers when a doctor declined to amputate them. Describing his experiences in the First World War, he wrote, quote, frankly, I enjoyed the war.
I think this dude's a psychopath.
He's a fucking savage.
They
dude.
weren't gonna let him enlist in the Second World War because he had like no eye and an eye patch.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm gonna go. And they were like, okay, well, we'll give you a glass eye. So they gave him a glass eye, signed the paperwork, and on the way, he took the glass eye and threw it out the window and put on his eye patch.
Said, fuck him.
Meanwhile, nowadays, so like my dad had epilepsy as a kid, so he's like out for military service, and like my brother and I are also like out for military service just because, like, based on that alone, like the fact that my dad alone had epilepsy, like nobody in our family, I think, like can serve in the military even if we wanted to. Meanwhile, this guy,
Yeah.
Right.
so like just the first part of what he went through, like it immediately flashed through my mind. This guy is 50 Cent 100 years earlier.
Right.
And then he tears off his own fingers.
Honest to God, this is the kind of guy that would like meet somebody with Parkinson's, and then the person with like full blown Parkinson's would just like feel like a huge pussy. Yeah, immediately. Like hands down, they're just like, fuck. I'm so fucking, this is dumb. Yeah, he's a stud. Like he should have been. Somebody should have put him down. He's a psychopath. I'm with you, Drew. He's a fucking psychopath.
Yeah, you don't tear off your own fingers and then tell someone that you enjoyed World War One.
Yeah, he said, frankly, I enjoyed the war.
Yeah.
That's insane.
So I just got his book, Happy Odyssey.
The name gets me.
I can't do it. It's too much. Happy Odyssey, dude. Happy Odyssey, written by Sir Adrian Carton de Wart. And you know he wasn't going to write the book. His family members made him.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure it's hard to write with like 2-3 fingers in your dominant hand.
Maybe it's his non-dominant. But either way. All right. So onward. God.
So, Paul, were you always into like literature and stuff and like theater growing through like high school?
Oh, I wish I had done more theater in high school. We talked about this earlier. You and I both went to UE.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I had done more theater in high school just because then, like, I could have auditioned for UE theater. Whether or not I would have gotten in is another matter entirely.
Yeah.
But we only do, like, you know, maybe 2 plays in high school. You can't audition for UE theater that at the time was, like, one of the top 4 theater schools in the country.
Their theater program
Yeah,
is
like
just...
Rami Malek went there.
Yeah, that's anytime Bohemian Rhapsody is on TV, like, and I need to just buy the DVD.
I have.
But like every time it's on TV, like I have to sit and watch at least a little bit of it.
It's dangerous though, because I feel
That
that way
guy
about
went to
Oppenheimer.
school, the same place I went.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna have to show this podcast to my parents now because my dad is from New York City originally.
Yeah. Huge theater in New York City.
Big on tunnels there.
Yeah, and so he went to this specialized. There are specialized high schools in New York City, and my dad was a trombone player. And so he got to go to this specialized high school called Music and Art High School. It's LaGuardia Music and Art High School. And then there was also a Performing Arts High School that in like 1984, the Music and Art High School and the Performing Arts High School just became like one campus where it had previously been 2 campuses.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, even though Jennifer Aniston went to like the other campus, like before the 2 schools merged or whatever,
Yeah.
Like anytime, my dad is flipping through the TV and sees an episode of Friends on and Jennifer Aniston is on screen, he'll say, she went to my high school.
Gotta stop.
Even though they were like, a decade apart and like different campuses. Anytime anybody that like went to either of those two high schools is on TV or film or whatever, my dad will say, oh, that person went to my high school.
Yeah, we need to take just a temporary...
I know... Wait, what?
I was going to say we need to take a temporary pause just to relish in how grateful we should be for God having given us Jennifer Aniston. I mean,
super
Jesus.
hot, like 60-year-old.
Sorry. All right. What were you going to say, Drew?
I honestly don't remember. You got...
You can't top that now.
I think I was going to say... if he needs another person to add to his list, Timothy Chalamet also went to LaGuardia High School, so he can get in with the younger crowd.
And I still haven't seen. Because I work at a radio station, I get into the movies for free because. So I'll say this: in like high school and college, I worked at the movie theater, and then my schedule got so busy, like they couldn't schedule me anymore. And so one of the managers I was real cool with, I was like, hey, like since I've got a radio show, can I still just like come watch movies for free, like for my radio show, and then I can review them? He's like, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So like, because I've been working in radio this whole time, like I still get to watch movies for free. And I meant to see Wonka, and that came out in December. So there's no way it's still in theaters.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I want to see that. I have no expectations of it being good. However, I really want to see Dune 2, which I think will be really good.
Who is the lead on Wonka?
Timothy Chalamet. That's why
Oh, that's why you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because he looks really familiar. What other big film did
Call Me By Your Name.
That was his break.
Beautiful Boy.
What did he just do? I feel like he just did something.
He was in Dune.
Oh, okay. So I probably know him from Dune because Dune was wonderful.
Well, I was gonna say, tugging off of his statement of like he wished he did theater in high school. Was there anything that like you wish you would have done in high school? Like I wish I would have taken debate. I always was always told I would have been good at it, and I never did it because I was like, that's dumb.
Yeah, drawing.
Now I'm like, really? Art class?
Art, drawing, and taking it seriously because like I'm a very right-brained person. I feel like that I just have, that's why we do this podcast. I just feel like I'm pretty creative. I can come up with things on the fly relatively quickly.
Drew, what about you?
I
2
wish
years ago.
I would have taken it more seriously.
Fucking 2 years ago. What would you have done different in high school?
4 years ago.
In 2020.
I also wish I would have had sex in high school. That would have been so sick.
Shut up, dude. So you were a virgin all through high school?
Oh, yeah.
Sick, dude. Sick. I was not. Nice.
Shut the fuck up.
I was a piece of shit. No, but yeah. So you do a couple plays in high school, and did you say where you went to high school at?
I went to Memorial here in Evansville.
Nice, dude. Catholics. So Memorial is pretty dope. They got a really good football team right now. And then you shift off to U of E, and you don't even. So what happens in U of E in college years? Like you're not entertaining theater at all at that point.
No, and my big thing in college was I was a manager for the basketball team, and that took up a lot of my free time outside of class.
What does that entail? Like, are you trying to get sponsorships for the team and like everything like that, or is it just like a lot of charts?
There were a couple times when like they would need to feed the team, and so they would say like, "Hey, we had 5-6 managers at a time," and they would
round.
Huh? Oh, absolutely. And so, like, every once in a while, they'd say, like, hey, like, we got a list of local restaurants. Like, everybody, take a few and, like, you call them and ask, like, hey, can you feed the team on Friday or whatever? And so I'm not going to name the name of the restaurant, but there was this one restaurant that I called that has since closed, sadly, because I liked this particular restaurant. I was like, hey, I'm with the UE basketball team. Like, can you feed the team next Saturday? And the guy was like, when was the last time the team was in here? That kind of, and I talked to my brother who went to IU and And he said something like, when that happens, you got to say like, hey man, I'm one of the student managers. Like, I'm not the guy you want to talk to if you're mad about the team, like not coming into your restaurant. Like, you got to go way up the chain to complain to somebody. Like, I'm doing grunt work, but like,
I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
I'm really broke right now.
But like, back to your point about like, what does it entail? I've been thinking a lot about this lately because I don't know if conflicted is even the right word, because since I still watch a lot of college basketball, but I don't know a lot about what goes on behind the scenes anymore, since like I'm not in college anymore. But I know the whole big thing now is like the NIL, name, image, likeness thing, where it's like now college athletes can kind of get compensated
money
for stuff. And my issue with all of that is, if you're a good college athlete, you get 4 years of free tuition and room and board, and usually like you'll get a little bit of a stipend on top of it. They're like, hey, I'm going to go out to McDonald's instead of eating on campus. Well, I've got a little bit of money for that because I got a stipend on top of getting all the stuff on campus already paid for.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this. So like, if you're a college basketball player and they say, hey, practice is from 2 to 5 today. And if you say, well, I want to be an even better college basketball player, so practice is from 2 to 5, I'm going to show up at 1:45 and shoot free throws for 15 minutes before practice starts. And if practice ends at 5 o'clock, I'm going to stick around for an additional 15 minutes and shoot 3-pointers. Meanwhile, if you are a student manager, if practice is from 2 to 5, like, you have to be there at 1:45 to like set up the camera and like the Gatorade and the towels and stuff.
Yeah.
And you've got to stay till 5:15 to take down the camera and, you know, get all the Gatorade out of there and wash the towels and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So like, you don't have a choice. But then like every year as a student manager, I would get like a little bit of a scholarship to just defray some of the costs. Like, oh, you know, we're going to knock $2,000 off your tuition this year as a manager.
That's pretty nice. There's some guy just wrote an article with the help of AI talking about, based on like certain statistics, how likely you are as a college athlete to get into the NBA. And it was like dudes named Christopher have a higher chance of making it to the NBA. And they said like every inch after 6 foot increases your percent of going to the NBA by like 10%.
Didn't we just talk about this?
I don't recall.
I thought we did, and then we made a joke. We made a joke about if you're Russian and you're 7'5", you're going to the NBA. Yeah, didn't we talk about this on the show?
I think so. Do you do any gambling? You know, a little haram betting on the sports?
Not on sports. The last betting I did, I was at a charity event back in February at the casino, and then when the event was over, I went into the actual casino and lost $45 at Blackjack.
Nice. I got a buddy that's big on sports betting, and he'll bet like all crazy, and if he hits, it's like 5 a.m. and he's betting on tennis in Europe. Like, he goes on like a betting binge.
Can we talk about the blackjack tables here in Evansville? Okay, I just have a little bit of... I like playing blackjack on my phone or whatever online, and it's just fun. Like, I like the game. Never have I been to Vegas. I feel like I've been to Vegas when I went to the blackjack table when the boat was still here, Casino Aztar, way
Hoosiers
back.
Lounge.
So I don't know if it's the same way now, but when I sat down at the blackjack table, I also lost $40 like that, like in a flash. And it was, the dealer was so like machine gun ready. I was like, oh shit. There's $10. I was like, okay, yeah. I was like, I'm in for another one. And then 10 seconds later, I'm out another $10. And I was like, all right, I know how they're handling it. Put me in on 20. I put in on 20 or whatever. And it's gone again in 10 seconds. I was like, these are like elite dealers.
I just played the electronic roulette.
Why are we doing like elite Vegas style dealing? Do you find that as well? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not a gambler. I don't know, but...
And my thing is, when I would first go to and again, it's the kind of... I go once a year.
Yeah.
You know, and when I would first go, there would be $5 blackjack tables. So if I had $45, that's 9 hands of blackjack that I can potentially play.
Mm-hmm.
Last year I went, and all I could find was a $25 table.
Yeah.
And I had like either $25 or $50 on me, so I could only play like 1 or 2 hands of blackjack.
And you're out.
Yeah, and then this year, I saw the $25 tables again, but then I found like there were a couple of $15 tables, but you still had to wait because people don't get up, and you can't just push somebody out of the way. Hey, my turn now.
Yeah.
And so
hand it over.
And so so I finally get a seat at a $15 table, and I had $45 in my wallet, and I'm not gonna go get more money because I don't want to develop a problem,
an addiction.
And so it's like, well, I played 3 hands and was out because I didn't win any of them, and like I wish they had the $5 table still. And I heard somebody make the comment one time, like, Bill Gates will go to Vegas and sit in a $5 blackjack table, like one of the wealthiest men ever to walk the face of the earth, playing $5 blackjack, which, I mean, good for him, I guess.
Yeah.
But still, like, let regular people have a $5 blackjack table every once in a while.
Hey, let the coal miners sit down at a table, or let your regular production workers sit down at a table. Like,
I just had to change my password. It's no longer Bill Gates is a pedo.
What is it now?
I can't tell you that now.
That's too offensive. It's too offensive. We didn't even also. I'll mention this at the end of the show, but all right. So I wanna go on to So after
what gets you into radio?
Yeah, what happens after college? Does radio happen while you're in college?
Yes, I should have done something my freshman year, and I didn't. I was still trying to get my sea legs freshman year of college. So all I really did in college freshman year was being a manager for the basketball team, and I worked a few hours a week at the school library as like a work-study student. I didn't do a whole lot extracurricular-wise other than those 2 things. And then sophomore year, I was like, okay, I'm going to do radio. So I did radio all through college, and then when I graduated, the station manager was like, hey, feel free to stick around. And so I did that. Sadly, if people were unaware, UE got rid of their radio station in November of 2019. So again, I don't want to say that caused the pandemic, but
they've
causation,
got a radio
correlation.
station now.
No,
Or is it online?
No, they have no radio presence at all anymore.
No, they do. My girlfriend has a radio show at UE.
At UE? What's it called?
I don't remember the
I'm
name
gonna have to
of the
look
station.
it up now.
Dude, you fucking text her right now.
What's it like going to college for radio, though? Like, what's class like for radio?
Well, I didn't go
college?
specific. So I was a mass communication major. And so when you're a mass communication major, like, oh, we've got, at the time they had a weekly newspaper that has since become a monthly magazine, which I made the comment one time. I said, if I ever got rich, I would change it to a daily paper. And you're thinking, okay, there's not enough stuff going on at UE to make it a daily newspaper. I will do things to make it a daily paper. I will just streak across campus every day.
Sounds like a good incentive for it.
Just juggling in the courtyard for no reason. Just
I do. Well, if that's going to be it, it's going to be nude man attempts to juggle and fails miserably because I can't juggle to save my life.
To Katy Perry or some other super obnoxious music. That would be great. I would honestly pay to see that happen.
Not just, I'm going to say not just to Katy Perry, but I would have the video of her Super Bowl performance and zoom in on Left Shark whenever possible.
Yeah.
While juggling and streaking naked across campus.
Yes. I'm on board with that, dude.
When did you think you found your funny bone? Or were you always kind of like a class clown through school?
Okay, so some stuff is coming out.
Uh-oh.
When my brother and I were in kindergarten, the kindergarten teacher sent a note home to our parents saying, I think your boys are competing for class clown.
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's when it happened.
At least it wasn't I think your boys are autistic or something.
So what I'm about to say, I said in another podcast, but I don't think I've said this on stage yet, and I need to say it at a stand-up open mic sometime. I feel like my parents had me tested as a kid, and they came back and you might be 2% Asperger's. And so here's the thing, there's nothing wrong with being on the spectrum.
No, fuck no.
But I still don't want that label. I am not
the handicap.
like I am not 2% Asperger's. If anything, I am skim milk Asperger's. Like you just
good.
like you just add enough chocolate syrup until you forget what was there before.
Exactly. Dude.
Also, if you're gonna be diagnosed with Asperger's or autism of any kind,
yeah.
fully commit.
Yeah.
What's this 2% shit?
Don't dip your toes in.
I'm not autistic if I'm 2%.
You got it or you don't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're Elon or you're fucking
Just the weird guy.
some dude, you know, who likes to wear fucking socks on his hands.
Yeah, it's no longer a spectrum. It's very black and white.
It should be. Drew, that might be the most profound thing you've ever said on this podcast. It fucking should be. That being said,
Drew finally takes his side.
yeah. That being said, everyone in this room now has Asperger's. So I'm for sure 1%, for sure.
Why are you drinking 1%? Is it because you think you're fat? Because you're not.
He does.
You could be drinking whole if you want.
So, oh man, dude, I love a good Asperger riff. But that being said, so you get into radio in college, right? And what was your first gig?
My first like radio gig in college,
Being on
or-
the radio, like talking.
Yeah, I mean it was sophomore year of college. The two main formats they had at UE, they played a lot of jazz and a lot of blues, and then they had a little bit of everything. So like during the day from like 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. it was jazz Monday through Friday, and then like 6 to 9 it was like top 40, Katy Perry or Justice Beaver or whatever the guy's name is.
The beeve.
And then like Saturdays they would do blues, and then they eventually got to Sundays they would also do blues, and then like they would carry all the UE sporting events. And so when I signed up, I said, hey, I'd like to do jazz or blues, and they said, well, we got a lot of jazz people, we'll stick you on the blues. I said, okay. And so like because of that, like I got free tickets to blues concerts. Like I got free tickets to BB King, and yeah, it was great.
Sick.
Yeah,
Fucking sick.
You get a little badge. You get to go meet people.
I got to give a shout out to a guy who used to work in Evansville radio, who's down in Florida somewhere, and now I'm going to have to send him this podcast when we're done. Big shout out to Sean Roberts, who used to be an Evansville radio guy, who's now down in Florida somewhere. They were giving away tickets at one of the commercial stations in Evansville to BB King, and caller number 5 gets tickets. And I was not caller number 5, but I just stayed on the line, and eventually he answered. And I was like, hey, man, like, I'm one of the DJs at WUEV. He's like, oh, man, hey, man, I'll get you tickets and backstage passes. So I've got a crappy, like, digital camera photo from, like, several years ago, back when, like, nobody had a phone in their pocket.
Yeah.
But I've got a crappy picture of me with BB King outside of, I think, the old National Events Plaza at Evansville.
Just so we're clear, you never had a smartphone in your pocket until like a year ago.
Yeah, 4 years ago. But
Okay. 4 years ago. So,
Yeah.
Jeez Louise,
Yeah.
dude. I'm
You
so
went from
baffled
the
by
5
that.
megapixel to like what are they now? 12.
Yeah, that's fucking wild, dude. That's awesome that you got to meet BB King.
Yeah.
though. Literally one of the goats, if not
Yeah.
the goat.
Yeah.
Fucking wild.
What was it like the first time you went on stage for stand up?
That's a fun story. I'm so glad you
Because
bring this up.
you've already been doing you've already been on stage for theater at that point.
Yeah.
And then so now you're like transitioning to on stage for comedy.
So I had been writing, I say writing jokes. I came up with little ideas even back in like high school. Like I remember one time I was at, maybe the first joke you can call this I ever wrote. I was at the movie theater over on Morgan Avenue watching a movie with a friend of mine, and our parents and some of their friends were at the pizza and wing place right next door. And so, like, before we go into the movie, we're hanging out in, like, the arcade area. And these two little kids are at a pinball machine or whatever. And I just hear one kid say to the other, "That's okay. You can play with Mr. Shithead." And I have no context for what any of that means, but it sticks into my head. And so afterwards, we walk over to, after the movie's over, we walk over to the pizza and wing place where our parents are sitting there eating pizza and drinking beer and having wings.
Yeah.
And I tell the story. I said, yeah, this kid in the arcade said to his friend, "You can play with Mr. Shithead." And I said, I'm thinking to myself, when I was a kid, we had Mr. Potato Head, but like, what's this new toy about? Like,
Yeah, what?
And everybody at the table started laughing because they had been drinking. And even if that's not a funny joke, if they had beers in them, like, who cares,
It's still a clever idea.
It's like
though.
that dog that can't get it out all the way, and that lady's got to pull the turd out of their dog's butt. That's like the dog's thoughts.
Yep.
And so that was the first time I ever got a laugh, was just in that pizza and wing place by the movie theater.
But you might be onto something. What's that? What's that turd? No, seriously. What's that turd from South Park?
Mr. Hanky, where
Yeah,
the
Mr.
very
Hanky.
first
His
episode,
face
you can
said
make
it
your
all,
own,
dude.
You can make your own Mr. Hanky, and it's got the
Right.
thing, and you can put eyes on him and a hat on him.
Right.
Fucking
Reach out to
scarf.
South Park.
Good
Yeah.
accessories. Yeah, dude. Reach out to those dudes, man.
But so my first legit time on stage, there used to be a place. It's now Amy's on Franklin. It started out as a place called PG. There was this hipster bar, coffee shop kind of place, and they would do monthly comedy shows. And one time I go there for a comedy show just as an audience member and said, okay, show's at 9. So I get there at 9, and at 9 o'clock, somebody gets them and says, hey, we're going to start in 10 minutes. I'm thinking to myself, I should just take the stage, even though I have no business being there, and tell jokes. And I chicken out and I don't do it. So a month later, same situation, they've got a comedy show, and they say, hey, we're going to start the show in 10 minutes. So I just get up on stage and start telling jokes. I'm like, hey, I'm not on the show, but I'm just going to tell jokes anyway because whatever. I'm bold like that. I should clarify, there were 1.5 audience members at that point. And when I say 1.5 audience members, like there was a legit guy there to see comedy, and then the bartender was like off to the side, but within earshot where he could hear me. So I'm counting that guy as half of an audience member.
Okay.
And the guy who, like the headliner that night, it was either a guy who has sadly passed away named Big John Richardson, and if it wasn't him, it was a guy named Longhorn the comedian who comes to Evansville or to Jennings Street Public House in Newburgh on a fairly regular basis. It was one of those two guys, and whichever one it was, he said, man, you got it, good for you for having guts and getting up on stage, man. I respect that. So, even if I wasn't great, and I probably wasn't great that first time, but still, just the fact that, I did it. And then as you learn that, hey, Jennings Street Public House has an open mic every month. Or, Alan Walker has a weekly open mic at Damsels. It's okay, I'm going to do this.
So do you go to those often?
Oh, yeah. I, at my second job where I am not adequately compensated, I put a note up for, the manager to see. It says, hey, on the first Thursday of every month, I'd like to get off at 6 because, the open mic starts at 7, and I gotta run 1 or 2 errands before that. So I'm always at Jennings Street Public House.
So for our listeners that don't know, or Brian and I, if we want to go attend one, so I get off work at 7. Is there
show up?
Yeah. So, but I could show up and watch. But is there already a list, or is it just a normal open mic where you write your name in?
Yeah, you write your name in, and if you get there at 7:15. And you see there are still open spots and you want to get up and do something, put your name down. And that's the thing I tell everybody, and I told this to a comic one time, sadly it's since closed, Carson's Brewery. They did comedy shows every once in a while. And this was I was kind of new to comedy at that point. And I was talking to a comic after one of those shows, and I said, especially at an open mic, whether it's comedy or music or poetry or whatever, I would rather see somebody get up at an open mic and do a bad job than to just sit there and not do anything because they think they're not good enough. Because, again, with any kind of artistic endeavor like that, there's a good chance you're going to be bad the first time, the first 5 times, the first 10 times, but you got to stick with it. And eventually, you're going to figure out, I've got some raw talent here that I can polish, or somebody's going to come up to you and say, you're not good at this, find something else to do, but thanks for the effort anyway.
Yeah.
There's also successful comedians who kept with it that suck. Matt Rife, not funny.
I
still haven't seen his stuff, and he's
too pretty to do comedy is what Brian's theory is.
Okay, because he apparently I need to get into him, but apparently he's controversial for some reason that I'm too scared to look up.
I'll tell you what it is. He hit the scene like a fucking hurricane.
Okay.
And he's a really good looking guy.
So he had
Just-
a big feminine bass crowd.
I mean, he's just fucking.
Not naturally. He got shitloads of plastic surgery.
But he's beautiful. He's just a fucking beautiful person. And he hits the scene with a fucking wave out in Cali and gets this overwhelming feminine following in the first year of his career. And that was like 2 years ago. Then a year after, once he realizes, most of the people buying my tickets and selling my shows out are women. Then in his head, a lot of the criticism he got was, it's all tailored towards women. It's tailored towards women. All your followers are women. Then he said, I'm going to come out with a special that can prove that I am a all-around comedian, not just somebody eye candy, basically. And he came out swinging.
The way he did that, though,
swinging.
opened his special with a joke about domestic violence that was in very poor taste.
It
And
was. When I say he came out swinging, comes out swinging.
And then he like gets so defensive because he knows that people only like him because he's hot.
Yeah.
So he is like very self-conscious that he's not funny. So like he is very defensive and gets mad at people. And the reason he's
Meek
successful
Mill trying to say Diddy didn't touch him.
is because he
Facts.
posted like crowd work clips on TikTok. He's going in and choosing his very best moments, which, yeah, that's what you do when you clip stuff. But everything else, he's like, can't write a joke.
The thing about comedy is it is not. It is an art form, but it is not an art form of beauty. It's not a beauty pageant. If you are hot, if you are a hot woman or a hot man, it is like the opposite of the world. It is like you're going to have to work a million times harder than any other comedian, because when you see a disheveled man falling to pieces, maybe he's not even wearing a shirt, he's got fucking bibs on, and he walks on stage with fucking a horrible hairline and he's got a fucking toothpick, you're like, this dude's about to fucking slam it down and bend me over and make me take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a fucking comedian. Then you see a fucking goddamn underwear model walk on stage, you're like, fucking nope. No. Just no. You're immediately like muted. You know what I mean? There's a you feel what I'm saying, right? There's a desensitization there.
Yeah, and so like one of the jokes I've leaned into kind of in my stand-up recently, like I'm trying to, you know, I say put my set together. The thing I always tell people is, have I written enough material for like a 45-minute special on Comedy Central, Netflix, Amazon Prime? Probably. Is it a good 45 minutes? That's highly debatable. So like when I go on stage, like I'm trying to tweak things, and so like I always start out my set talking about radio. And so I'll get on stage and I'll say, yeah, I got my start in radio doing a blues show in college, which makes a lot of sense because nothing gives a man the blues like growing up in a white middle-class family in southern Indiana. And you know, that was a tough upbringing.
Yeah.
You know, and so again, like you're taking something that like, oh, what does this guy know? But then like I feel like I'm making it funny, and especially if my audience is a bunch of middle-class white people and I say like, here's what it was like for me growing up, which is why I have the blues, like they can laugh at that.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And that reminds me of a bit that Daniel Sloss has where he's have you heard of Daniel Sloss?
I don't know Daniel Sloss. I
He's
do not.
like a Scottish comedian. He has a couple specials on Netflix.
God bless
But
you.
he has a joke where he's like, it's very hard being a comedian with like starting out your comedy career with liberal parents because they support you no matter what.
God,
He's
that
like trying to
sucks.
rebel and be a comedian, and they're like, yeah, you can live with us for free, we'll drive you to your gigs. And he's like, what, fucking, you didn't touch me, you didn't like
fucking stop.
you're not alcoholics, I have no trauma.
Yeah. Fucking
He
stop.
tells it much funnier, but that's the gist of it.
What did Chris Izzy say? Chris said, or no, he didn't say it. He mentioned it in a book or something, or one of the comedians we interviewed mentioned it in a book, but comedy is trauma plus time.
Oh, that phrase has been around for like a long time. Yeah.
It's trauma over time.
Yeah.
So I think like, yeah, so that's a funny.
Although this specific comedian, he's has trauma. It's just not that. Like his sister's dead, but
Oh, dude, rest in peace. But also, let's start writing some.
Was it
he
jokes.
from a
makes
metal
great
straw?
jokes about it.
Let's go.
Hilarious.
Let's
But
go.
I think one thing I would like to do in the next year or two is like you see a lot of these comedians that are in smaller communities like we have here, but they're releasing YouTube specials. So like I would like to try to film a YouTube like comedy special.
that
I
would be
think.
fucking tight.
It'd
Even
be-
if it was like 20 minutes. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like a set.
There are people that are really trying to promote not just comedy but any kind of artistic endeavors in Evansville. And again, I sound like a broken record when I say this because I tell this to everybody. I can't tell you how long it's been, but Bill Burr came to Evansville, and Rachel Goldman, a
Fellow
local
bald
comic.
man.
Yeah. Rachel Goldman, a fellow comic, was one of his openers.
Mhm.
And the thing I always tell people is every time any kind of big national stand-up comic comes through Evansville, I want to see one local person
On
be
the
an
stage.
opener
Yeah.
because we think we're funny in front of 24 people at the Jennings Street Public House on a Thursday night. Put us in front of 1,800 to 2,700 people or 10,000 people at the Ford Center who like want to be there on purpose to see what we can really do.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Sounds
ever-
fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
Well, and I was at a comedy show last night at the Rooftop over on Martin Luther King Boulevard here in Evansville, and I was talking to one of the comics after the show, and he is based out of Huntingburg, Indiana, and works for a company up there. And the company had some kind of like work retreat down in Louisville, and they rented out this theater in Louisville, and they had like 500 people from the company there, and this guy put on like a show for them, and he said the stadium, the theater holds like 2,600 people, and they only had 500 seats filled because it was all the people he worked with. He said, but they were all like, in the front rows, and he said, honestly, a lot of times it's easier to be a stand-up comic in a big theater rather than, a bar, because in a bar you've got, if it's a packed house, it's 50 to 60 people.
Yeah.
But if you're in a theater, even if he only had 500 people out of 2,500 seats filled, like 500 people are going to laugh a whole lot easier than 50 people.
Right.
That, and then there's also like, and the only thing I take away from what you were just saying, the bar versus a like artistic setting, like a theater or an arena or something, you have an oasis, you have a getaway, you have the green room. A bar, ain't no fucking green room, dude.
Yeah, you're just back in the back of the bar.
Nah, bro, you're
Quiet.
just going back to your fucking bourbon and
Yeah.
just
Hear
hoping you
people
don't
talking shit. They're like, that guy sucks.
Well, you got your regulars that are just alcoholics and there every night.
That's what I'm saying, dude. It's
Do
fucking
you,
dicey, dude.
Have you ever watched like Kill Tony?
I've seen one clip of Kill Tony that somebody at my second job showed me, a guy named Heath Cordes.
Yeah, he's fire. That's the guy that looks like he's 12 years old.
Yeah.
Brian probably hasn't seen him.
Oh yeah, I have seen him. Yeah, he's got glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that kid. He's fucking dude. He's gonna blow up. Does he have like dwarfism or something? Because he's like 20.
It's a medical
Yeah,
condition.
he's an adult, but he's always going to look like he's 12. Apparently, is what my coworker said.
yeah,
based on whatever he's
so
got.
fucking funny though.
Yeah.
He's so adult. He walks out on stage because on Kill Tony, anyone can go up there.
Yeah,
I think you have to be 21, but maybe not. I don't know.
There's been a few people that aren't 21, but that so like when you sign up, you have to fill out a paper, so like if you get called, they can air you. You got to give them your consent or whatever.
Yeah.
So like there was a kid that was like 16, but his mom was there,
to
so
sign
she
it.
yeah.
But it's just wild because he walks on stage and you're like, oh, this is like a 15-year-old trying comedy for the first time, and he's like, I was deep in this the other night, and you're like,
He was actually a virgin.
wow, not a 12-year-old.
He was
Yeah.
actually a virgin. He lost his virginity the night
I'm
before the
joking.
arena show.
But he's very aggressive, and I fucking dig it. I fucking like.
But yeah, I
his
didn't know
stuff.
like if you ever like would you consider doing something like that, like going to Texas and signing up for like a giant open mic?
especially if somebody paid my expenses, I will get on a plane tomorrow and go anywhere to do comedy or acting or radio, anything like that. I mean, that's one of the sad things about being a stand-up comic is like, oh, I have to get in my, crappy Ford Fiesta or whatever
Yeah.
that might break down in the middle of the road, but yeah, like that's happened where, you know, there was one time there was an open mic show at Lamasco's on Franklin Street. It was a Sunday afternoon kind of thing. And whatever was going on, like I had 3 different places I had to be on that Sunday that like whatever the last place was, it wasn't like a funeral home, but for whatever reason, like I kind of had to be in a suit. And so like in between like the first place I had to go and the last place I had to go, like I stopped at Lamasco's for this open mic. And so like I go out on stage wearing a full suit because I'm like, I don't want to change later.
Pull the John Mulaney.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a little John Mulaney.
And there's a guy who he was doing comedy for a while. I don't know what's happened to him. His name's Chase Everly. He's brilliant in my mind. And he was there that night doing the open mic. And I had never met him before. But so my name was on the open mic. And I go up wearing a full suit. And I couldn't tell you what jokes I said that night. And he came up to me afterwards or at some point in the future when we knew each other. And he said, man, when I saw you, I said to myself, who is this autistic kid who's going to get up and try to do comedy and be bad at it? And he said, you got up and killed it, man.
What's your writing process like for a joke? Like you're driving in your Ford Fiesta and you hear something funny. Like what do you go through now?
Honestly, it's like I just experience life and think, okay, what happened that like there was one time I was in the car with my parents. I couldn't tell where we were driving. And I just start cracking up in the back seat. And they said, okay, like, what's going on that you're cracking up back there? And so I just told them, like, it just popped into my head, and I'm telling this to them as it came to me 2 seconds earlier. I said, I think as an incentive to motivate the people at Weight Watchers, the time of next week's meeting should be based on the weight of the heaviest person at this week's meeting. And so then it'll be like, okay, well, because Linda can't say no to cheesecake, next week we're meeting at 3:45, right in the middle of Jeopardy. I'm gonna have to record it.
That's funny. I made that bit about like Love Is Blind, like they should use actual blind people.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. So we talked about like what would that show even look like? So now you just got a bunch of blind people like
feeling each other. Like, what's blind speed dating like? Do you just feel their face, their boobs, their ass, and then go to the next person?
I mean, you would have to sign like. So that's like a Me Too. That's like an entire Me Too afternoon.
Yeah.
You would have to sign a waiver. And you'd have to be like reading in Braille, like touch my boobs. No, absolutely no touching my boobs.
I'm out, dude. I'm out. I'm gone.
Grab my ass. Yes, you can grab my ass. That's fine.
I would also pay money to see somebody read Braille that's like do not touch.
That's actually
like
a clever
to see the
idea.
reaction on their face.
Geesh, they would have a fucking come apart.
Right.
Fucking god, dude. They just like, and then a demon fucking appears.
Yeah, it's a genie lamp.
Yeah, it's a fucking genie that says "Do not touch." Rubbing a genie lamp.
Rest in power, Robin Williams.
Oh man.
Oh,
well,
my
you know
God,
what Wish
dude.
One is.
Oh man. So, what do you think? One of your favorite things is about comedy.
One of my favorite things about comedy is it's
other than the laughter. Clearly that's the best part.
Yeah, 'cause I was gonna say it's like a defense mechanism. It's disarming people because people say, "Oh, we're living in hard times." Like we've always been living in hard times, and comedy is, I don't want to say an escape from that. And maybe it's kind of a way of saying, you know, yeah, things aren't great, but like we can ease your pain a little bit.
No, I agree with that.
I think there's always a little humor in any situation.
I think laughter is the best medicine.
I mean, chemotherapy helps, but
laughter didn't help that lady with the straw.
No, it did not help her.
Yeah,
with the
you're
straw.
not wrong, dude. No,
I don't know. Did we try it?
We did now, but we were a few years
think
late.
About trying out a fucking killer joke on her. Like maybe she would have made it if her fucking wife would have
crack open a bottle and like the joke comes out when you take the lid off and close it.
Yeah, it's the genie lamp that says "Do not touch," and you have to read it in Braille, and then a fucking joke genie comes out. No, I don't know, man. I really do. I think that like just the genuine human disposition is mostly mental. Like as humans, we're all so different mentally. You know what I mean? And then like everyone takes in life in different strides and like positives and negatives and input and output and sensory overload and all this stuff. Social media. I mean, you're finding out. You got a smartphone now.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like comedy like is a moment where you can like put your phone in your pocket. Like if you're there to hear the stand up, put your phone in your pocket, shut everything down, and then just open yourself to laughter. And it's an intriguing thing because like the world that we're in with 24/7 media coverage, blah 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 blah, negative. Comedy is like a good relief that many people need.
So the sad thing is, like, you know, as a comedian, when I go to comedy shows, like if I'm seeing a bunch of I want to support local Evansville comedy, and at the same time, if I go to a comedy show and it's a bunch of people that I know that I've seen do comedy a bunch of times before, like there's still this temptation, like I'm going to look at my phone for a couple minutes because I know what this guy's going to say on stage because I've seen it 20 times. And it's the kind of thing, like it's fighting that urge of like, you know, hopefully I can laugh at this guy for the 21st time because, you know, there's that temptation there. Again, like I'm getting drawn into it as well. Even though I didn't have a smartphone until 2020, there's this temptation of like, oh, I'm going to scroll through my phone mindlessly for a couple of minutes.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I'm with Drew earlier in the show. He mentioned, man, if I could just go back and like shut it down, all the contact I would lose. But like sometimes it's worth it.
That's something that actually happened to me, I would say. One of my best friends from high school, he was on Facebook. And then one day he decided like Facebook is not enriching my life. I don't find it edifying. So he got rid of his Facebook page. And so I've got his phone number. And I know his email address. And so about once a month, I'll just try to shoot him an email and say, hey, here's what's going on in my life. He lives in Ohio now and sadly doesn't make it back to Evansville that often. His parents are with him in Ohio, and his wife's family, I think, are still here in Evansville. So like I think he might get back once or twice a year to have either Thanksgiving or Christmas with his in-laws.
Yeah.
But, you know, like he doesn't make back to Evansville all that often, so I just emailed him on Leap Day. I was like, hey, man, happy Leap Day. Hope you're doing well. You know, let me know if you and the wife did anything fun for Valentine's Day, like ate any great meals, like to celebrate Valentine's Day, and like let me know the next time you're in Evansville. I've got jokes. And so he's got a birthday coming up in March, right around St. Patrick's Day. And so I'm going to send him an email on St. Patrick's Day and say, happy St. Patrick's Day and birthday. And like, hopefully, I'll be hosting a show in April. I'm hoping that in the next week or so, somebody's going to say, hey, I want you to host an April show for me. And so hopefully in a couple weeks, I'll email my friend and say, hey, like, you're probably not going to be in Evansville in April, but if you are, I'm hosting a show. Come check it out.
Get the fuck out of Ohio, man.
Yeah. Well, he even said before, he's like, man, come to Ohio and do comedy sometime. Which again, look, again, if somebody's paying for me to come out somewhere, I'll get on a plane tomorrow.
100%, yeah.
But if I'm in a Mitsubishi Galant from 1998 that might break down on the side of the road, like
maybe I don't make it.
That's kind of dicey.
Yeah, you're rolling the dice.
The nice part about this is I get to ask you what piece of advice would you give to somebody that wants to get into radio? We'll go there first.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, if you are in the greater Evansville area, talk to the full name is the Southern Indiana Career and Technical Center. It's like the high school trade school program that's out on Lynch Road in Evansville, because like that's where the radio station is. Talk to whoever you need to talk to get involved in that program.
It would be the teacher for that course at the Southern Indiana Career and Tech Center is JoBeth Boots. I took that my senior year of high school, and it's a very good program. They have all kinds of stuff like culinary, automotive, and I was in the radio and TV.
Nice.
But yeah, that's definitely
Senior
if you're
Boots
in high school, which I doubt that we have very many high school listeners.
Oh, fuck, I hope not.
If you are the parent of a high schooler that wants to get in radio, talk to JoBeth Boots. And this happened at my radio station one time in Boonville, 99.9 FM and 1540 AM, WBNL. every day at noon, the guy who owns the station comes in and we do a show together called The Trading Post, where people call in ahead of time and they say, like, I want to buy a feather bed, or I want to sell 2 antique candlesticks, or I want to give away 5 diseased chickens for free, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I love a nice diseased chicken.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the best chicken soup.
100%.
You can taste the suffering.
Yeah, the sadness.
Yeah, and so like during this show, we'll talk about the things that people want to buy or sell or trade or give away for free, and we'll banter back and forth. And he says, "Yeah, I got an email from some kid that goes to school here in Boonville or Warwick County or wherever, and he wants to get involved in radio." And I said on the air, I don't know exactly how the Indiana school systems work, but if you're in Warwick County, see if you can somehow get into this program, that Joe Beth Boots is running over in the Evansville area. Like, I don't know if that's a possibility or not, but I said, talk to them and see if you can do it. Because, like, that's how you do it. Again, whether it's radio or comedy, the thing I always say is, like, do it. Don't sit on the sidelines and say, I'm not good enough. Get up, do it. Maybe you're going to be bad the first dozen times, but either stick with it till you figure out you've got raw talent, or figure out that you need to pursue something else.
So then you just answered the comedy part. What about somebody who wants to get into doing theater?
Okay, the 2 main groups in Evansville, Evansville Civic Theater, and then the Evansville Shakespeare Players. Those are the 2 main groups. Those are the ones that I'm involved with. If there are others, like, reach out, let people know you're out there.
What about the Nazis?
The Germanian Manicore?
Ionic Nazis.
The
IATSEs.
Yeah,
sorry. That was a dark turn.
It's the IATSE.
I was going to say, like, I feel like the Nazis weren't doing a whole lot in theater.
Yeah, they weren't.
Which is probably good. Like, so I'm going to say this. I'm not going to go into details.
Do you know about the IATSE, though?
That game with the dice, right?
No, that's
IATSE. So,
but they're a group. They're a local theater group, I believe.
I think that's the audio people that put on the theater shows. The audio
fuck
equipment
me.
people.
Ignore me.
have you guys seen a movie called The Producers? Mel Brooks.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so it's this great movie, and there are 2 versions of it. There's a 1960s version with Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel.
I love Wilder.
And there is a early 2000s version that started out as a Broadway. I think they both started out as Broadway plays that got made into movies. The version from 25 years ago was Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane as the 2 main characters.
Too.
And so the story is, there's this guy who is a Broadway producer, and all his plays, like, lose money. And, like, he's not good at his job. And so this other guy comes in who's, like, with the IRS to audit him to figure out, like, oh, like, you're losing money. What's going on? So what ends up happening is, like, so he raises money from all these rich widows to make these Broadway plays, and then, like, they always close after one night because they're just bad plays. and so the guy says, like, hey, what's this discrepancy of $15,000 in the, he's like, yeah, I spent the money on a Turkish bath, because what else was I going to do? The play closed. And the IRS agent says, yeah, technically you could make more money with a flop than a hit play. He says, what do you mean? And the IRS agent says, well, think about it. Like, you raise $1 million for a play from all your investors, and then you spend $100,000 on paying the actors and the sets and the costume design and all that. And then you spend $100,000, you got $900,000 left over, and you close after one show because everybody hates your show. You just made $900,000 in profit. And so they come up with this idea like, oh my gosh, we should raise a bunch of money, put on the worst play ever that closes after one show, and then we'll just pocket the rest of the money and be rich. And so they they try to find the worst play ever. And they find the worst play ever that was written by, like, a Nazi sympathizer, and the name of the play
So perfect.
The name of the play is Springtime for Hitler. And they're reading the script. They're reading the script and they're saying, "Oh my gosh, this is a love letter to Hitler. Like, this is perfect for us." So I know a guy the guy is Jewish, and he's like, I refuse to watch The Producers because of that whole Springtime for Hitler thing.
Yeah.
And another guy that he knows who is also Jewish says, like, you're insane because the whole thing is, like, it's a comedy, and Mel Brooks wrote the producers. And if you don't know, Mel Brooks is Jewish.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's what you might call a perfect storm.
Yes.
So your advice to people getting into theater is to
Just get involved.
bankrupt really terrible
Really, Witch
play.
Old Widows, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then take their money and just run, essentially.
Yeah.
Real Nigerian prince
Yeah.
situation.
Again, Evansville Civic Theater, their artistic director, Kevin Roach, just stepped down. He's got a bunch of stuff on his plate, so he needed to scale back. I don't know if they've replaced him yet. If they have, and anybody's listening, I'm sorry for not knowing exactly who you are, who's replacing Kevin Roach. But just type in Evansville Civic Theater into the Googles, and that'll get you where you need to go. And then the other one, the Evansville Shakespeare Players, that is directed by a woman named Tony Shapperjohn. And if anybody is familiar with Channel 25, WEHT, if anybody knows Gretchen Ross, that is on, yeah, she does a lot with the Shakespeare community.
Okay.
And
Nice.
then, so I've got a. Well, I know what's coming up in the show, so like I'm gonna mention.
No,
other
absolutely,
people, yeah.
absolutely. And then what else? What do you got, Drew? You got any last minute questions, sir?
No.
Floor is yours, dude.
I
Anything
don't
you can
think
come
so.
up with? No.
I will mention I didn't know you were a playwright. Brian?
Myself?
Yeah.
You wrote a play.
I'm a playwright.
Yeah, Springtime for Hitler? The Nazi sympathizer?
That's probably more Tom's expertise than mine.
When did it come out? They might have found a 6th grade paper I wrote.
Yeah, that's where they got it from. No, man, but so the last thing we like to cover up on is through your journeys through stand-up comedy and through radio, through all your journeys, was there ever a dark moment where you were like, I'm about to hang it up? You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do this anymore. This isn't worth it, whatever. And then we care less about, not to diminish that moment, but we care less about the moment, so you don't have to go in great detail, but what we care most about is what got you through that moment and kept your foot on the gas for that specific endeavor.
So I hope this doesn't deflate your sales, but so far the answer to that question is not yet. Because the thing I tell people is within the Evansville comedy and theater communities, like, there is a lot of support. And the thing I tell people is, like, we're all generally really big cheerleaders for each other. Like, I was talking to a guy after a show last night who said he's only been doing comedy for a little bit, like, not as long as I have, but he got his start. He would go to Chicago for some work stuff, and then while he was in Chicago, he would find open mics in Chicago. And so, like, that's where he got his start in comedy.
Trying not to get shot on stage and shot back.
Yeah.
And I made the comment to him, like, you know, I've been to Chicago, but I've never done anything comedy-wise there. So, like, I can see where the bigger cities, he said, like, it's cutthroat. I can understand how in bigger cities you maybe don't want other people to succeed. But so far in Evansville, as a general rule, we want other people to succeed, which is an amazing support system to have. And that's the thing I mentioned. I was doing a podcast back in October, and we had just finished a production of Fiddler on the Roof. And I made the comment in this production that, you know, I just done Fiddler on the Roof, and every time I'm in a theater production, we have a Facebook page for the group where people can post messages saying, hey, like, we're going to start rehearsal 15 minutes later tonight because somebody's going to be a little bit late, or we're going to move rehearsal from point A to point B, or this, that, or the other thing. And I said, we always leave those groups open after the show is over, because then we stay in the group and we say, hey, everybody, I was just in a podcast. Here's the link. You can listen to it. That kind of thing. Because, again, we all generally want to support each other.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Connectivity is huge. That's the one thing that social media is good for.
Yeah, I love that there's like a supportive scene in Evansville. However, Brian, Tom, I think we need to get into the comedy scene and be the villains.
Start
of
cutting
Evansville.
throats.
Yeah.
Start cutting throats.
Time out. When you say villains, are you talking about heckling or what exactly?
No, we just like are very competitive, and
Okay.
we are cutthroat, and
I
we
get
don't
it.
want other people to
I get
succeed.
it. I get it.
So-
I get it.
I feel like we need.
Yeah,
Let
like
me-
the guy that goes up on after me, I might unplug the mic cord.
So I wouldn't do that. Here's what I would like.
do that, but
Because this is still the Midwest where we try to be like at least quasi nice to each other. Like here's what I'm thinking. Like you go up, you do your 5 minutes of comedy, and then I go up after you and I do my 5 minutes of comedy, and then I come off stage, and then you just be like, "Hey man, I hope you don't succeed at this."
that'd be good too.
Yeah,
That'd be good too.
Start small.
Yeah,
we
start
can work
small,
up.
Yeah.
Build our way up.
As
Build our
I'm
way up.
getting off the stage, I hope
Yeah.
you trip.
Yeah, I hope you trip or trip them. Is that going too far?
I don't know.
I don't know. We could feel it
Are
out.
there cameras there?
But I think that the three of us need to get into comedy very soon.
Do it.
I legitimately yes.
Yeah.
We won't be villains, but
We're very
should do
close.
it.
Again,
Very close.
the first Thursday of the month, it's the open mic at Jennings Street Public House. Sign-ups are at 6:30. The event starts at 7 p.m. And again, every Wednesday at Damsels, Alan Walker has an open mic show. That one, sign-ups are at 7:30. The show starts at 8.
and
it's awesome.
and what day of the week is Damsels?
That is Wednesdays.
First Wednesday of the month.
Oh, it's
No,
every
it's every
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, it's
Which-
every Wednesday.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So they're doing every week.
Yeah.
And then Jennings is the first Thursday,
First Thursday.
of every month.
Yep.
And sign up is at 6:30.
Yeah.
Show at 7.
Yep.
Okay.
These
Sick,
last
dude.
couple of minutes are all you last minute shout outs of who got you to where you're at and keeps you going, and then upcoming dates you might have.
First, as a Midwesterner, let me apologize in advance if I forget anybody. I should have written out a list because, like the Oscars, it's like, oh, I've got a list. I want to thank the producer and the directors. Okay,
This is pretty close to the Oscars. I would like.
it
to
is.
think.
So
Yeah.
first, I got to thank my family for being supportive because
100%.
it helps that I have day jobs. Because if I didn't have day jobs, I feel like my family would say, "Hey, like, get a real job, you weirdo."
Yeah.
But the fact that I have day jobs, my family's like, "Oh, hey, like, yeah, try to do stuff on the side like comedy and theater. Like, we respect you for that. Good for you." And they come to shows. Like, it's a lot easier to get my family to come to theater shows than comedy shows, mostly because when the script is already written out for a theater show, I can't make fun of my parents on stage.
Yeah. There's really no surprises.
So big thanks to my family. Some people that have... Okay, so let's start with radio. Mike Crowley, who is, I'm going to say somewhere in the Boston area right now, he was the manager of the UE radio station when I was there, and I'm going to have to send him a link to this podcast when we're done if he can get through the whole thing and like just listen to 90 minutes of whatever I'm saying just to hear me say his name at the end of it. So Mike Crowley, Ralph Turpin, who is the owner of 99.9 FM and 1540 AM WBNL radio in Boonville, Indiana, for taking another chance on me. He's such an amazing human being. So those two guys, especially in the world of radio. Also, Tom Benson, who used to be at WUEV, the college radio station. He's still at UE doing stuff in the athletic department, which he's a super nice guy.
R.I.P. Sandman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, those are some big radio people for me. And then in, especially comedy, theater, let's do theater. Tony Chaperjon with Evansville Shakespeare Players, Kevin Roach and all the people at Evansville Civic Theater. Those people are amazing. And then stand-up comedy. Thanks to Danny Browning for putting me on one of his shows one time. And then he also hosted the Tri-State's Funniest Person competition last year that I was a finalist in that one. And I'm hoping he told me, he's like, "Hey, I might have you host my April show." We haven't set anything in stone yet, but he put that out there about a month or two ago. So, again, I don't know when that show is going to be exactly, but look for me to host the April show at the Jennings Street Public House in Newburgh, Indiana. His group is called Laughing Dad Entertainment. They're on Facebook and on just the general interweb. So thanks to Danny Browning. Dustin Madison with Pop-Up Comedy Club. He's another one that's booked me on shows. There's a guy, he's taking a break right now. Hopefully he'll get back into... I keep telling people, like, sometimes people take breaks and I get it. But even when somebody takes a break, I'm like, hey, get back into it. One guy that's taking a break right now is Josh Turley. He had a group called Laughing Dad. Not Laughing Dad. That was Danny Browning. I just said that.
You're good. You're good.
Paul, can't you keep these people straight?
Tighten up, Paul.
Mom, you're not even listening to the podcast right now. No. Josh Turley, his was called Foolish Comedy.
Okay.
And again, hopefully someday he's got some other stuff on his plate right now. So hopefully one day Josh Turley will get back into the comedy scene. Chris Izzy has, you had him on the podcast, and I watched his podcast
So
episode
good.
right before I came here.
So
And he's
good.
another one. He pulled me aside one day. He's like, "Hey, man, like, you're doing great. Like, here's some behind the scenes stuff you need to know about the comedy scene." He's been a huge help to me. So again, Josh, Dustin, Danny, Chris, a guy named Andy Imlay.
Yep.
Love Andy.
Yeah, Andy's a great guy. Antonio Edmonds is another great guy who, again, we're so lucky in Evansville to have all these people who really want to support each other. Again, Chase Everly, the guy who said, "Who's this autistic kid about to get up and tell jokes?"
For sure, shout out to Chase.
Again, yeah, and again, I apologize profusely from the bottom of my heart. If I didn't mention you just now, just like send me a text and be real polite about it, because I'm a very fragile, delicate human being. All of us who are stand-up comedians, like deep down, we are
Sensitive.
We are delicate and fragile human beings because we are all getting on stage, like trying to get laughs out of people because somebody hurt us in the past.
Yep.
And so, like, be gentle with us when you criticize me and say, "Hey, why didn't you mention me on this podcast?"
Yep.
Yeah, if I start comedy and people have criticism, I'm gonna have to sit in their lap and them give me the criticism while I'm like curled
You
up.
have to like rock me to sleep,
Right,
dude.
rub my hair.
Yeah, I almost
Give me
got
a bottle.
so like again, like I'm gonna be selective. I'm just gonna tell people like, "Hey, watch this episode with caution." But I also want to give a shout out to the people. Again, I've done community theater, and one of the shows I did, we did Fiddler on the Roof. And everybody in the Facebook group like posted something, either like the day of the last show or like the day before the last show. I waited till the day after the last show, and I said, "Hey, like of all the shows I've done, like every show is special, but this one might be like the most specialist because some of my background is like I've got some Eastern European Jewish in me,
Nice.
and that's where Fiddler on the Roof is set, is like Eastern European Jewish."
Oh yeah.
And so big shout out to the people in Fiddler on the Roof because I made the comment in the Facebook group. We did 2 weekends of that show. And I made the comment, "I wish this were like Broadway and we could keep going until people decide they're sick of us and just stop buying tickets to the show." That was again, because it's a little bit of my family history and like it was just a fun group to be around.
Yeah.
And
Fuck yeah.
I'm going to give a special a special shout out to somebody in particular. Stan Gillum, he was Tevye, the lead character in Fiddler on the Roof, and he was also right after Fiddler on the Roof. He was Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman,
Nice.
and then he was also in the Pericles play that I did earlier. And I think he has another show coming up called Alias Grace, and I'm not sure who he is in that. And I haven't said this publicly yet, and I've been waiting to say it. And he's got a birthday coming up in the near future, so I'll tell him on his birthday through Facebook. Again, one of the points I've been hammering home this whole time is in theater and comedy in Evansville, like we're all really big cheerleaders for each other. And Stan Gillum, like in this world of big cheerleaders, he stands head and shoulders somehow above everybody else as being like everybody's biggest cheerleader.
That's awesome.
Fuck
And that
yeah,
is
dude.
like, I don't think he's been to any of my comedy shows yet. Stan, if you're listening to this, please come to one of my comedy
Tighten up,
shows.
Gillum.
Yeah.
Tighten up.
I mean, I want him to come to one of my comedy shows and just like bust a gut laughing and saying you're phenomenal at this, because again, he is the kind of guy that you want at all your theater productions, all your comedy shows. You need to get in touch with this guy and have him on a podcast. I'm going to go a little bit into his backstory and just what I've known doing. I've done 2 plays with him and seen him I wasn't in Death of a Salesman, but I saw him in that. I was talking to him during the Shakespeare show. So he taught at Wright's, I think in English, for like 32 years.
Right.
He retired, came out of retirement and teaches over at St. Philip in Posey County, teaching 5th grade, I think. And like did like theater in high school, gave, like life happened. So he didn't do it for like 30 years. And then just in the
Right.
last like year or two, got back into it, which is awesome.
Hell yeah.
And, yeah. And so again, just this whole idea of like, get on stage and do something. Like, especially in Evansville, like, we'll find a place for you.
yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. And
Just
so,
go do it.
yeah. And again, he's just such this amazing cheerleader. Like, he wants everybody to succeed. And it's so good to have people like that in your corner. So again, like I want Stan Gillum to come to one of my comedy shows.
Stan, we're looking for you,
Stan,
brother.
Stan, write 5 minutes of material and come open. I say open for me. I'm not big enough to have somebody open for me yet. Just Stan, come to an open mic and do or this idea I had. I got to tell him to do this. This probably popped into my head yesterday. Is he needs to come to the open mic and just have like the karaoke version of a song from Fiddler on the Roof and just sing it at the open mic.
Dude, if he's crushing it, if he's got pipes on him, do it.
So we did it over 2 weekends. And after, I think it was the very first show, somebody said to the director after the show, that was the best Tevye I've ever seen. Yeah.
I got to get this guy in here.
Oh, yeah.
Got to get Stan in here.
So yeah, he...
Take notes.
He taught for 32 years at Rideat, teaches at St. Philip now. He was a minister for a long time also.
Damn, dude.
And then acting.
Nice.
And a phenomenal singer. Yeah, this guy, I don't want to say Renaissance man necessarily, but
he's got the Holy Spirit in him.
He's at least halfway to being a Renaissance man, I would say.
Hell yeah.
He is absolutely the kind of guy you want to get into.
Oh yeah. Does he curse?
Oh no.
Oh, does he care if I curse?
Let me read.
Does he care if I curse?
I will say this. I don't know if it was it was probably a rehearsal, like probably the week before we opened Fiddler on the Roof. We performed it at Bossy High School. And so I was like backstage, like in a hallway. Like we spent a lot of time in a hallway backstage. And there was a bathroom right there. And so I'm just in the hallway chilling. And he comes up and he says, "Hey, if you heard any loud farts coming out of that bathroom, it wasn't me." Yeah.
Yes.
He would be I feel like Stan Gillum would be a great guy to have on this podcast.
Right in immediately. But yeah, man, dude, I seriously, I can't thank you enough. You could have done anything for the last 2 hours, but you came down to the old West Side out here in Catholic territory.
Thank you so much for having me. And
you know what I mean?
If I can, like, I'm just going to throw this out there. If anytime you want to have me back, let me know. I will do my best to be here. We were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago. But I had a family thing out of town, and I was like, I'm not sure what time I'm gonna get back into town, so we pushed it back a week or two.
No, and it works out. It works out. But yeah, man, I really do appreciate you. I know you're in hostile territory right now with your Jewish background. You're in the Catholic area, so we respect that. And you could have done anything for the last 2 hours. We record on Sundays. This will come out on a Tuesday. I don't know the date offhand, but yeah, you could have done anything, and you came in and chatted with us about some theater, some radio,
you said
comedy.
you said I could be doing anything. I mean, I've got a glass of cognac in my hand. There's not much more I'd want to do right now.
It's not bad cognac either. I'm be honest with you, and I'm not a cognac guy. So, no, I just really greatly appreciate you for your time, and thank you so much, very much, Paul.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a good man, and I'm glad I got the pleasure to meet you today. So
it has been a pleasure.
Guys, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another thrilling episode of the Days Grimm. My name is Brian Michael Day.
My name is Thomas Grimm.
And I'm Drew Head.
And this has been Paul Braggen. Bragin?
Paul Bragin. The way I remind people, it's pronounced like
Reagan.
It's pronounced like President Reagan. It's pronounced like President Reagan with a B in front. I'll tell a quick story. So one time I was doing stuff at UE. I was in charge of broadcasting all the sports over the internet. And we had some kind of a technical issue that had to get resolved. And Tom Benson, the guy I previously mentioned, he was in charge of all that stuff at the time. He's like, you need to email somebody in New York who can fix it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I send an email to somebody in New York, and I say, hey, we're supposed to broadcast a basketball game tonight, and we're having an issue, so please fix it for us. And at the end of the email, I put Paul Bragin, my name. And so he emails me back and says, hey, Brian, blah, 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 whatever. Close enough.
Yeah, so we've been butchering your last name the entire day. So,
but thanks for coming in, Paul Bragin.
Thanks for
Mr.
having me.
Paul Bragin. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you.